Yasa Scherete. So, you probably clicked on this video thinking that I was going to give you a list of reasons why I became Orthodox, maybe some apologetics or arguments for becoming Orthodox, maybe even some answers to objections from other religions or denominations against the Orthodox faith. I have to admit that's not really something that I'm going to do on this channel because, frankly, I'm not qualified. I've only been Orthodox for a little less than 2 years, and although I have a fairly solid background in Western theology, I mean, I was a Latin teacher, I studied patristics, I have a background, but I am by no means an expert in Eastern theology or theology at all. So, with that out of the way, let me tell you what this video is really about. Today I'm going to be talking about those gifts that God has, for no reason of my own, chosen to put in my life that help keep me grounded in the Eastern Orthodox faith. These are not in any particular order, although I think you'll see that one is certainly better than the other, or more important than the others. But I'm just sort of building from the ground up here. Okay, number one is the wonderful culturally orthodox communities that I have become a part of. I think there's a tendency in America, especially in convert parishes, in convert communities, for us to discount the experiences or the reality of cradle Orthodox communities, especially Greek and Serbian and Russian and so forth. There's a tendency, I think, among converts to really want American Orthodoxy, and the fact is that I don't think this is a very helpful paradigm at all. I think that being connected to a culturally Orthodox community. Now, that doesn't mean to the exclusion of a convert Orthodox community or to the exclusion of our American identity, but being plugged in to a culturally Orthodox community helps us see that Orthodoxy has a lived reality. I think it helps us in a bunch of ways. So, for example, you may find amongst cradle Orthodox that a lot of the sort of practices that maybe you've read in a book, that like fasting, for example, that's so strict, and you imagine that being Orthodox means being so, by the book in terms of fasting or in terms of certain prayer rules or what have you, you're probably going to find amongst cradle Orthodox that they may not have that, but they have way more devotion to the Theotokos, way more devotion to the saints than you have. And so cradle Orthodox help correct us as converts and keep us from being like super judgmental or pharisaical about Orthodox teachings or Orthodox practices. I also think that it makes us more, how to put it, charitable. I think it makes us realize that Orthodoxy appears in diverse forms throughout the world. And then it goes the other way too. Now, this is sort of the contrast to that. While at the same time it helps us understand that Orthodoxy is a diverse religion, it also helps us realize that as a whole, Orthodoxy comes from a single place. It comes from that Byzantine culture that was, of course, originally a major part of Greece, and then it was received by Russia, which adopted essentially Byzantine forms, and then it from Russia into America, and of course also the Greek immigration into America brought that Byzantine culture to the United States. But all over the world, Africa, Europe, etc., we have this wonderful core of Byzantine culture that has transmitted the faith. And when we stay plugged into a culturally Orthodox community, I think we can really pick up on the roots of our faith. So, at the same time as it helps us understand the diversity of the Orthodox faith, being connected to a culturally Orthodox community helps us to see the real beating heart and the unity of that faith. Okay, I am very lucky here. I came in largely amongst converts who had no background or no relatives that were Orthodox. I didn't expect to have a connection with this community. However, I lucked out. My wife is Greek. I met her shortly after deciding to become Orthodox, and so she helped connect me with the Greek community, which has been extremely spiritually fruitful for me. It's also just connected me with a bunch of great people. It's helped me recover a bit of my Greek language studies from college, and it has connected me with sort of the living tradition of Orthodoxy in a wonderful way. Uh, Most of her friends are Serbs, so it seems like, or most of her Orthodox friends are Serbs. So at the same time, or they go to Serbian Orthodox Church, whether they're ethnically Serbs or not, that's a different story. But they go to a Serbian church, and thanks be to God, the Serbs are such wonderful witnesses to the Orthodox faith, and being a part of that community as well has helped sort of key me into the story of Orthodoxy. I mean, fundamentally, if you want to look at Mount Athos, for example, the heart of Eastern monasticism, you're going to find there something very Greek, right? You're going to find something that is very cultural, and even though Orthodoxy transcends and Christianity in general transcends ethnicity, at the same time, when we're plugged into a culturally Orthodox community, it really helps us stay connected to the church as a whole rather than just our little part of it. And that goes to something else that has to be said about cultural orthodoxy and cradle orthodoxy as help for a convert. I think that we have a real problem as converts in passing the faith along to our children, and that's for multiple reasons. I think oftentimes converts are sort of left on their own, either not by any fault of their own. Maybe there is no Orthodox church nearby, or maybe the Orthodox church that is nearby is made up of people like them, people that don't really have that much of a cultural connection to Orthodox countries and Orthodox cultures. And so they're sort of left on their own to figure out, oh, well, how do I celebrate St. Basil's feast day on January 1st? How do I make Vasilopita? How do I make Goliva? How do I, do this, do that, and then they try to read on the internet and figure out what to do. Well, thanks be to God, when we're connected to an Orthodox culture, and it doesn't have to be through marriage. You don't have to marry into it like I did. It can just be by, making sure that you visit with culturally Orthodox communities, making sure that you travel a little bit and meet people and form relationships, friendships, mentorships. Any of those things can keep you connected to that community. And when you do, you find that that you're going to learn more about how to celebrate the feasts, how to celebrate the fasts, and how to do so in an authentic way that's not just you making it up. And this goes to something that's very near and dear to my heart right now, because my wife and I, we are really hoping to have children and have a family someday, and we think about how do we raise children in this faith. And when parents seem to just sort of be making it up, you run into a real problem. And that problem is that the kids, as they leave the home, they find out that the world is not like what their parents, who had their own little practice of orthodoxy, in their home school or in their private school, whatever, it's not the same as what they thought it was. And so they leave home and they get very confused by the world and by all its temptations. And I think, frankly, we have a real problem in the convert community of our children leaving the faith. On the other hand, if you can connect it to a real culture, to a place where they can really see this alive, this faith and this tradition alive, then the then that culture, helps keep them in the faith. That's not to say that you can sort of make a Greek out of someone who's not a Greek. I'm not saying that you can. But a person who is Orthodox, who maybe spends a little bit of time in Greece or amongst Greek Orthodox, they're going to feel like, man, wow, this isn't so weird. This isn't such a, it's always countercultural to be holy. But at the same time, it's not necessarily, Orthodoxy is not necessarily a rebellion against, prevailing culture. No, culture comes from Orthodoxy, and Orthodoxy informs culture. You know, so this is something to think about. If you're hoping to have children, if you're a convert and you do have children, instead of making it up, instead of trying to sort of create your own little bubble of orthodoxy in your home, instead maybe connect with a culture. And I think your children will really appreciate that in terms of being able to see orthodoxy alive. And also see, when children go out and they are wandering all around the world and they're trying to find, where do I go to church? How do I worship God? All of these sorts of things. They're not going to be able to always go to their parents' living room, to their parents' icon corner. They're probably going to be able to find a Greek Orthodox church or a Russian Orthodox church, right? So you want to prepare them for that wider world of Christians and not make them think that Christianity is all about, something in the home. It's something that's big and expansive, and it affects nations today. It affects the world today. Right now it's a huge part of geopolitics, and children need to understand this about their faith. Children really need to grasp that they are part of something bigger, and not feel sort of constrained by their parents or by their homeschool or whatever. They need to see that they're a part of a wider truth and a wider reality. Okay, so that was my big thing. I just wanted to say one of the things that helps keep me in the Orthodox faith so much is being connected to an ethnically Orthodox community. I think that's incredibly helpful, and I suggest, this is just a suggestion, but if you're, maybe struggling, or maybe you're trying to think about how do I have an Orthodox family, maybe this is time to spend some time with cradle Orthodox families. Maybe this is a good time to spend with some ethnically Orthodox parishes, and realize that how things are done at whatever it is, St. Ipsy Dipsy Convertian Orthodox Church, is probably not the way it's done all over the world, right? So think bigger, expand your horizons, and go visit some other churches. Okay, number 2, things that keep me Orthodox. Of course, I have to say my family, right? Now, I have a non-Orthodox family. That's my actual family, because of course I don't come from Orthodox parents or Orthodox grandparents, and I have Orthodox family on my wife's side. I have actually found that being Orthodox connects me to both of them better than even traditionalist Roman Catholicism did. Not to say that traditionalist Roman Catholicism, necessarily wouldn't connect you with your family, but Orthodoxy definitely connects me with my family on both sides. On the one hand, on my Orthodox side, it's pretty straightforward. We can go to church together. We can go to communion together. We have the same feasts that we celebrate. Although this gets a little complicated with the Serbian friends because, of course, different calendars. That's a whole different story. But nonetheless, we can all celebrate together. We're all doing Lent together. We're all going to Pascha together. Beautiful celebrations like that help bind us together as a family. On my non-Orthodox side, it must be said that, first of all, I think that Protestants, non-Catholic Christians, non-Orthodox Christians, I think that there is a lot less bias against Eastern Orthodoxy amongst Protestants than there is amongst Protestants against Catholicism. And I think, frankly, some of the criticisms of Protestantism against Catholicism are, are somewhat valid. This, did God really give us this sort of dictatorial dialectic of doctrinal development? I don't know. I don't think so. That's why I became Orthodox. But yeah, again, I'm not going to get into the arguments for or against that on this video. So, nonetheless, I think that Protestants, they tend to be more intrigued by Orthodoxy than they are turned off by it, although a lot of them will end up being turned off by it once they actually find out what we believe, which is fine. We want them to come honestly and to learn truthfully about our faith. But accordingly, when I became Orthodox, I found that really my family sort of thought it was kind of interesting, thought it was nifty. One of the most interesting comments I had was from my brother-in-law, who came to my crowning, my wedding. I had my big fat Greek Orthodox wedding, to quote a movie, several months ago, and my brother-in-law came to it, observed it, and said, Clayton really likes the Bible. I can see why he really likes this church. All right, well, great work, Terry. In a way, my faith has connected me to my family because it's given me something to talk about. But I want to talk about something way more profound than that. Orthodoxy doesn't quite have the same views on the afterlife, on death and the separation between the living and the dead that, say, Catholicism has. Catholicism sees things in two tiers. You've got hell and you've got heaven. Never the twain shall meet. You go to hell, you're stuck there. You go to heaven, you're stuck there. In between, you've got purgatory, which has nothing to do with hell. You go to purgatory because you need to get fixed a little bit, and then you're going to heaven eventually. But in Orthodoxy, we understand that, your soul's experience of the afterlife depends on your relationship with God. And that may be that through the prayers of the people on earth, you're taken from one state and moved to another, from hell to heaven, what have you, right? We don't stop praying for souls. And through Orthodoxy, we have real hope for the people who pass away, even the non-Orthodox, of bringing them into heaven through our prayers and through the prayers of most importantly, of the body of Christ. I apologize, there's my phone going off. We have real hope, and that hope unites us with all of our family members who have passed away. And so I find that in Orthodoxy, I'm connected in a way for all of my connected with all of my relatives and praying for them and uniting them as part of my prayers. I recently had a grandparent pass away on my non-Orthodox side, and I prayed so hard for her, but I didn't pray in a way that was like sort of iffy like I would have maybe before as a traditionalist Roman Catholic. Instead, I gave her the full treatment. I was really praying for that soul, not saying, Lord, if somehow she made it into purgatory, let her out. No. God, bring her to heaven, right? This is the sort of thing that Orthodox pray for. Our religion is fundamentally a religion of hope, and hope unifies families. It unifies people together, regardless of what their religious background is right now. The fact that we are a religion of hope really unites Orthodox to everybody in the world, but especially to our families. I think hope is at the very heart of what a family is. Okay, so second thing that keeps me Orthodox is my family. and being able to pray for them, feeling spiritually responsible in a way to pray for them, and of course being able to share with them those great feasts and fasts of the church. So that's number two. And finally, of course, I have to say just a big shout out to my wife. My wife helps keep me Orthodox in a way that I think that nothing else could. She has definitely warned me, don't you dare even think about leaving the church, and I think God put her in my life precisely to keep me stuck right where I am, and I'm extremely thankful for that. Forming a relationship after I chose to become Orthodox, and that is something I would warn everybody about. If you are in the process of converting, maybe take a little break. Maybe take a little break from seeking out relationships until you actually decide to convert, or you actually are brought into the church. And I would also say, don't ever make a decision to convert just because of a relationship. But I think you'll find that your relationships will be greatly strengthened by your life together in the church. Okay, I actually did have one more. So my wife is the most important, but there is one more that I had on my list that I skipped over. So I want to talk a little bit about Orthodox worship. Orthodox worship is something that keeps me so rooted and grounded in the church. It's beautiful. I said I was not going to give you any sort of reasons to become Orthodox, but maybe you'll find a reason here. Orthodox worship, and I'm not necessarily referring just to Orthodox liturgy. So Orthodox liturgy is a lot like Catholic and Anglican liturgy in a way, in that it follows a script. Right? There are prescribed things to do and to say for the liturgy, and so in that way, there are beautiful liturgies all over the world from all kinds of religious denominations. When I say that Orthodox worship keeps me in the church, what I'm referring to is the way that Orthodox praise and worship God, not the script itself, but the act itself. Okay, here's what I mean. Just to give an example. Yes, it's true that Orthodox liturgy follows a script. That's true. But one of the characteristics of Orthodox liturgy is that it's sort of layered. Most of the time, when the priest is sort of praying at the altar, there's something else going on. There is a hymn being sung, or a set of texts being chanted by cantors. It's generally speaking, although congregational singing is certainly welcomed in the Orthodox Church, generally speaking, the vast majority of hymns are sung by specialists. So you can just sort of listen, or of course if you're a cantor you can sing along. But most of the time the hymns are sort of sung by specialists who have learned the chant and who have learned how to present these texts properly. And so as you're standing in the nave of the church, as you're standing before the holy icons, your heart is just sort of free to meditate on those words and worship with your own inspiration to God. 9 times out of 10, and of course if you know something you can sing it along. It can be spontaneous. In other words, although it's scripted, Orthodox worship is actually very spiritually, I think, extemporaneous, spontaneous. It's a lifting of the heart to God. I would say the closest thing that you could experience outside of the Orthodox Church would be the traditionalist Roman Catholic Mass, or the traditional Latin Mass, because of those moments of silence. But it must be said that in Orthodoxy, if the texts in the traditional Latin Mass are extremely rich, the texts in the Orthodox Church are, not only ancient but extraordinarily rich and detailed. They tend to sort of open up the heart to meditation on all different aspects of a particular mystery or of the life of a saint. They're just way more detailed than perhaps other liturgical traditions. So when I say that Orthodox worship has this wonderful character to it that keeps me rooted in the church, I'm referring to the fact that I can sort of stand in church and listen or participate in the singing, and my mind is just sort of lifted in constant contemplation on the mystery and on God. Frankly, you don't even have to be, even if you're coming into the church maybe with a lot of doubt, or maybe you're not ready to become Orthodox yet, Orthodox worship will still have that effect on you. It will still leave you free to open your heart to God. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Another aspect of Orthodox worship that I find very helpful is the music itself and learning the music, because it takes more effort, I think, to learn Orthodox music than perhaps a lot of hymns, in the more Western Protestant tradition. I hate to say the Western tradition because it's not really part of the Latin tradition, but the sort of hymnody, that tends to be fairly simple, tends to be something that, everybody can learn. Whereas in Orthodoxy, you kind of have to study it, and as you do, certain words become just part of your psyche. In fact, they have to be, or you can't do the work of a cantor. And so I've been very blessed to have the opportunity to at least make some initial halting starts at that process of learning those chants. And as a singer, as a former choir director for a church, I find this very helpful for keeping me in the Orthodox faith. So Orthodox worship, it keeps me rooted. It keeps me coming back for more. The fact that I get to come every Sunday and worship like this is just an incredible gift that I'm not worthy of. If the only thing I could ever say or sing in church is, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, I'd be extraordinarily lucky. As it is, we get to hear and sing the wonderful melodies and words of the great Greek Orthodox hymnographers, and I think that's a wonderful blessing. So let's summarize, and maybe now I'll put them in importance from least to greatest. Least, being connected to a culturally Orthodox community, huge benefit for staying Orthodox. Huge gift that I am thankful for every day. Then being united to my family through the Orthodox faith, amazing. Orthodox worship, lifting my heart and my mind to God, and finally, the wonderful gift of my helpmeet, my wife, helping me stay on the straight and narrow. So all of these things help me to stay Orthodox. And as you're listening to these, all I'll say is this. Once you choose to become Orthodox, I believe, this is just a hope, that you're going to find the help you need to stay Orthodox. Maybe you need to reach out a little bit, but it doesn't have to be the same as my list. It doesn't have to be the same reasons that keep me Orthodox, but you will find reasons to stay Orthodox once you make that leap of faith. I believe. So even if you go to an all convert parish, even if you have no family, even if you never find that helpmeet, that spouse, that Orthodox spouse to help keep you on the straight and narrow, even if you can't go to church that often, I think God's going to give you the help that you need to stay Orthodox, and that help may be um, um, just the very fact that you have to sacrifice those things. And I also know that God can take all of these things away from me at any time. He can make me deaf, dumb, and blind. He can also make me lose my family. He can make me lose my community. All of those things are open to him. But I have no problem with turning around and kind of like the leper that we read about on Sunday, turning around and being thankful for the things that he's given me, while at the same time recognizing I don't deserve any of them. So, I hope this video has been helpful for you. Let me know in the comments, what are the things that keep you Orthodox? What are the things keeping you from being Orthodox? And if you're on the line between Orthodox and not Orthodox, what would you need? What would you need to hear, or what would you need to see to bring you on in? All right. Adiosas. I hope you all have a very blessed day.